Hello, and welcome to the May 2024 transmission of Galactic Terrors, the online reading series that scours the known universe for scary stories, strange tales, weird horror, and all sorts of literary oddities from the most imaginative authors writing in a variety of fascinating genres. I'm Jim Chambers, and with me tonight is my co-host, Carol Gyzander.
Hello. It's wonderful to see you. Bit of a crazy time of year, isn't it?
Yes, very. I think Carol and I are both knee-deep in all sorts of horror writerly events and planning and things that are going on this time of year, especially our upcoming HWA annual convention, StokerCon 2024, which will be in San Diego, California in just about 4 weeks. Less, I think, actually. About
Yes.
3 weeks and a couple of days, maybe.
Not that we're counting, but yeah, I can't wait. Yeah. Well, tonight I'm very excited because we have three very interesting and very different readers, which is going to make a really cool discussion as we're going here. We have Oliver Baeer, Tom Joyce, and Jennifer McMahon with us.
Exciting. Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing everybody's stories and hearing what they have to say, answering our questions and our audience's questions. And thank you, the audience, for joining us for Galactic Terrors this month. For those of you who are familiar with us, here's a reminder. And for those of you who are new, we are broadcasting the second Thursday of the month, every month, most months, Galactic Terrors on our YouTube channel and Facebook pages and groups. So certainly click subscribe below on YouTube to follow future Galactic Terror transmissions. You could hit the like button too. Apparently that's a good thing. And we like to be liked, so why not? But if you really want to follow our upcoming broadcasts, you can join the Galactic Terrors newsletter. And we'll put that link in the chat in just a few seconds. And we send that newsletter out about about twice a month, usually to announce the upcoming broadcast, and then just closer to the date of the transmission as a reminder. But there's all sorts of good information there about our authors and, of course, information about what's coming up on Galactic Terrors.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Cool stuff.
So, Carol, I think we were talking a little bit before, and you have a pretty cool new project that's in the works.
I do. And you can see the little mushroom guy behind me. It has something to do with this project. This is an anthology through Crone Girls Press, where I am the associate publisher, which just means that I listen and nod when Rachel Brune, our publisher, does all the work. That's what that means. But the two of us are co-editing an anthology called Dark Spores. And it's the fourth in this series of stories we tell after stories we tell after midnight. And see, it has been a crazy month, Jim. But this is mushroom horror. You know, we've seen an awful lot of things on TV and on movies and such with mushrooms are the themes. And then some of the books like Sylvia Moreno Garcia's Mexican Gothic had a very cool mushroom theme, and Nick Kaufman did his book, and just cool things. It's really taken interest, I think. So we thought, let's put together an anthology of stories. So we have quite a few invited authors, and we're sort of releasing a little bit about those as we go along. And we also have a Kickstarter that we're doing. So that's pretty exciting. And that may explain why I'm a little bit insane right now. So
just a little bit.
Just a wee bit, just a wee bit. Yeah. So, but we do have a little teaser video that we could show. Do you mind putting that up for us, Jim?
Sure, let's take
It's just a short one.
The mushroom spreads its filaments through the darkness of its host, invading the rich and fertile ground of your imagination. Join us for Dark Spores, Stories We Tell After Midnight 4, as masterful authors take you on a journey through the shadows.
Very nice. I just want to say that time-lapse photography of mushrooms and other fungus growing is one of the most mesmerizing and creepy things to watch. So.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So far we've announced that Nick Kaufman has agreed to put in a story for the anthology, and we'll be announcing more authors as we go along. And I'm just going to hint to all of you Galactic Terrors people. You get a little bit of a special upfront news. Someone that you know is going to be putting in a story as well.
Ooh, I wonder who it is.
Who could that be?
Excited to find out when it's published.
Yes.
But that's great. I think it's interesting how popular this little subgenre of horror has been. Where I don't know. I haven't checked the final schedule yet to see if it made the final list. But we were talking about a plan on fungal horror for StokerCon.
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll see. I'll have to double check and see. Or anybody who's attending StokerCon, you can check that out in the app that lists all the programming.
Oh yeah, cool. It's a great topic. There's an awful lot to talk about because there's such an alien kind of thing, yet they grow on our planet.
Yeah, so, that's great. And if anyone listening is, I know it's quite late in the day, but if anyone is on the fence about attending StokerCon, and to book a room in our Overflow Hotel and join the fun. Or attend the virtual convention. We will be doing a virtual StokerCon again this year too.
Yes, and there is a StokerCon Facebook group, and I just saw a notice in there that a few people had canceled, so they actually have a few rooms available if you get there in a hurry in the main hotel. So I don't know if they're still there or not, but worth a look.
Right. That's great. Well, I think probably enough chit-chat about StokerCon. Shall we go on to our readers, the main event for the evening?
I think so. I think we should segue from mushrooms to tentacles, and we're going to do that with our friend Oliver Baeer. Oliver Baeer was the editor for Cthulhu Sex Magazine and Two Back Books. He mostly writes dark poetry and horror stories with the occasional blog post, review, essay, and play. His stories have appeared in April Gray's anthologies, as well as Even in the Grave and Soul Scream Antholozine Volume 1. His poetry has appeared in Goodreads Best Poems 2020, Here We Are, A Rhapsody in View, The Long Islander, Soul Scream Antholozine, as we said, Birds Fall Silent in the Mechanical Sea, Cthulhu Sex Magazine, Horror Between the Sheets, Horror Writers Association Poetry Showcase Volume 2, and other publications. He has 2 books out, Letters to the Editor of Cthulhu Sex Magazine and Baer Soul, spelled B-A-E-R, of course. He was the writer for Dina Warner's Halloween Card Project in 2021. He also has a CD of poetry set to music, Gathering Souls by a Conclave of Baer, which became a show in New York City. He's appeared as an indescribable horror from the depths, and his likeness has appeared on TV and film. He can be found in the virtuality on social media at OBAER, Obaer, on Twitter, and Obaer3 on Facebook, and much of his work can be found at tentacularity.wordpress.com. Thanks so much, and welcome, Oliver.
Hello, everyone. This is a story called A Familiar Session. On the way to his office at the Institute, S. Dominic Vox considered his progress, or lack thereof, with Arnold Brown Jenkins. Arnold was one of the more difficult people, if one could call him that at this stage. The cult of the living darkness had asked Dominic to help. Sometimes he just wasn't sure they paid him enough. Sometimes the transformation wasn't as successful as they thought it was, and sometimes there's only so much a human mind can stand. Dominic didn't entertain these doubts for very long, as he reminded himself they still had those photos of his improprieties and that video footage. How they got a hold of that, he didn't really want to know. It was better, he reminded himself, to stop thinking that they asked him to help. Their request was not something he could deny. Dominic had seen what happened to people who did not conform to their wishes. It was something that haunted him in the way that one never gets the smell of dead flesh, reanimated or otherwise, out of one's nostrils. Dominic shuddered and forced his thoughts back to the case at hand. He was starting to have that feeling again. There was something unnerving about Arnold, something he could not express right now, but it was there. It was as if something was watching him through Arnold, reminding him about how insubstantial his life was. This bothered him, because the last time this happened, it did not go well for him or the patient. A boy found in the catacombs of the family crypt, communing with rats, claiming to be the son of Verminus Rex. He reached his office door. Turning the knob, he knew something was up before he even stopped and stepped into the room. It had the faint smell of old, musty books mixed with storm-tossed seas. He grimaced in frustration. He hated when they sent servants to check up on him. No, he corrected himself, not servants, messengers. Better to think of their function than for who they worked for. He stepped into the room. He let out a moan of annoyance as he entered. Everything was in disarray. Not horribly, but just enough to make it known to him that they were watching and not pleased with his lack of progress. Message received. They would have manifested themselves for a clearer message, but for the man pacing around the room. Arnold was already there, ashen-faced, pacing back and forth in a pattern of disturbing familiarity. When he saw Dr. Vox, he stopped. With furtive glances toward the center of the room, Arnold started babbling something about awakening in the doctor's office in an agitated state and about his attempts to deal with said agitation. He had tried sitting in the chair and doing the meditation the doctor had taught him. It did not work. He had tried lying on the couch. That did not work either. So he just started pacing. It was not as easy as Arnold expected, since he had to step over some files that had fallen off the top of the file cabinet, stepped around games that were not put away, and through a little corridor made by couch cushions on the floor. Then Arnold saw his wife in the center of the room, with 3 men dressed in red, green, and black. They formed a triangle around her. The image strobed, and they were gone. Then Dr. Vox had entered the room. If Dominic was doubtful before, he now had the proof he needed. They were indeed watching, and he would check on his wife after the session was over. Now, to work. As Dominic starts putting his office back in order, he decides to start with a welcoming greeting rather than jumping right into what Arnold said as Vox walked into the room. "I'm glad to see you back, Arnold. Ready to start our word association again?" "Yeah, I guess so. But can I ask a question first?" Arnold says hesitantly, anxious and confused, as well as somewhat put off by Dr. Vox's manner and seeming unwillingness to address his concerns. "Yes," Dominic says distractedly as he picked up the files on the floor and proceeds to do the filing that should have been done before. He had a habit of putting off his filing by placing the files on the top of the file cabinet. He told himself that he would put them away at the end of the day. Many times that would not happen, as he became distracted with thoughts of rat parts fitting into human bodies and whispers in the darkness. "Well, I've been coming to you for several weeks now, and you haven't done nothing. What's going on? You just trying to make money for the witch house? Or what's the deal?" Arnold complains in a manner that seems unlike him. Dominic stops organizing and puts the remainder of the files back on top of the filing cabinet. He decides that he won't address Arnold's use of the sensational name the tabloids use for the Institute and turns around to face his patient. "Arnold, psychotherapy is not like fast food. You cannot just blurt out problems to me, expect me to spit out answers for you like a computer. It takes evaluation, and then diagnosis, then treatment. This is the answer to both your questions." "Oh," Arnold stops. His nose twitches, and 2 of his fingers drag themselves from under his nose to a corner of his mouth. "Let's get started, shall we?" Dominic eases himself over to his desk, eager to nip this weirdness in the bud. "Okay," Arnold replies, the unusual manner receding. He wants to ask Dr. Vox why the shadow people are becoming more psychedelic, more colorful. More importantly, he wants to ask why his wife was in Dr. Vox's office. Vox. City. Arnold, with a dimness to his tone and a look of fear in his eyes. Scary. Dominic tries to snap him out of it with a firm, blunt tone. Arnold, I told you not to do that again. Dominic's nerves are becoming unsettled again. A dark reflection takes shape in Arnold's eyes. He seems to be fighting the process. That's not good. Dominic can't repeat past mishaps. His family should not have to go through what he did. Substantiation is not all it's cracked up to be. The men are still beating the crap out of Arnold. This is what I get, he thinks. This is what happens when you want to change things. Then it all goes dark. When the light returns, Dominic is looking at him concerned. And I think I'm going to leave it there. There is more. But I'm going to leave it there for all you people who know who Dominic and Arnold are. And thanks, Jim, for adding the cover images from Cthulhu Sex.
Thank you, Oliver. So if people want to read the rest of that, where should they look?
Nowhere right now.
Okay. It's coming. But Dominic and Arnold have appeared before, correct?
Yes, they have.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, so, in a little book edited by some hauntingly good editors called Even in the Grave.
Oh, thank you, Carol. All right. Now, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, Oliver, and we do have some questions in the audience, but I'm going to start off with this. And since Carol was kind enough to upload this for us, I'm going to share this quick look at some of the covers from the infamous Cthulhu Sex magazine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you were one of the editors and publishers of Cthulhu Sex magazine, correct?
Yeah, I was the editor. You could say one of the editors because the publisher was also an editor. Okay. So, yeah.
But I guess my question for you to start things off is you have a background in theater.
Yeah.
Performance. You write a lot of poetry and do poetry for performance. You've been an editor and publisher. How does all that contribute to your work as a writer?
Oh, that's well, I think one of the things is that the theatrical, well, I guess I never thought of it in terms of theater because theater I think is somewhat different. I think of it in terms of my writing, but I'm sure Teal could argue otherwise. It's possible that the theatricality helps me create the scenes better, and kind of know how to set up a scene for people that will keep people interested. But I tend to, be a little more long-winded than the piece I just wrote, or that you just heard. Like, I don't usually have so much dialogue. So I think perhaps the theatricality helps me create those scenes and make it interesting. I have been told that you can definitely tell I'm a poet because even my prose writing is poetic in some manner.
Yeah, it has sort of a lyrical quality at times to it.
Yeah, so I guess I hadn't really thought of it that way until somebody pointed that out.
Okay.
But so yeah, I guess that's most of the answer to your question.
It is.
Did I miss something?
No, that's good. It's a good segue into our first audience question, which is from Teal James Glenn, and it's kind of an interesting question because I know that we often joke about your various corporeal and non-corporeal forms and
it's true.
Modes of transport around the city and influence with the hidden beings.
Yes.
But Teal is asking, how much does your life affect or direct how you write? He sees so much in your writing about perceptions of reality, which is interesting.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I guess that I guess I guess a lot of that idea of perceptions of reality has affected my writing because that's been developed over my life. So I could go into it, but it's going to be a long-winded and complicated thing. But let's just say my life has been, I guess, somewhat different than most beings. Then I'm probably not much different than a lot of people in the Horror Writers Association. The nutshell thing is I was born with congenital kidney disease. I was dying by the time I was 10. And then I had a kidney transplant at the age of 13, which produced there were other effects that happened as a result of the kidney transplant that made my life a bit different. So all of that, I think, created, and I guess I saw that I was having different perceptions of this reality we call life than other people. So I guess that's how that fit in with the.
Yeah, no, certainly. I mean, you had a unique experience. It would give you a unique perspective on life and a unique eye for writing. I would think. Yeah.
And then I guess I realized I picked Lovecraft mainly because I guess I believe I'm a rather fearful person. And I think Lovecraft is the genius on writing about how human beings actually see things and say things when they're extremely afraid. So I think that's the other reason I picked that, or that also probably affects the writing.
And the tentacles.
And the tentacles, yes. Which I have, they're off screen right now.
Okay, that's probably for the best for tonight.
Yeah.
Bring the tentacles out only on appropriately solemn occasions.
Yes, and I'm sorry to disappoint, but that story had no tentacles.
Well, that's okay. Not everything can have tentacles.
That's true.
But it's an interesting story, and I like that you, or I guess I'm interested in the fact that you're coming back to these characters that you wrote about in Insubstantial, which is the story in Even in the Grave, and that you're sort of pursuing this very weird and at times surreal and certainly multi-layered in terms of its reality or levels of reality, these kinds of storylines.
Yeah. Well, I decided to do that because I already had sort of the bare bones of this. I think of when it's I'm still trying to decide if this is actually finished or not. I think it's finished. But so I'm thinking of this more as a prequel to Insubstantial.
Okay.
Rather than a sequel, but again, perhaps that is to be determined.
All right. Well, we'll see how that works out. So one last question before we go on to our next reader, and we'll have you back at the end to talk about what you're working on in the future. Is there, and I know we another kind of running joke for us is avoiding the Shoggoths.
Yes.
Is there any circumstance, scenario, case where you could see a Shoggoth being useful?
Absolutely. Oh, you want me to tell you what it is?
If you want, I mean, if you want to keep that top secret so that no one steals your Shoggoth ideas or Shoggoth plans, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, well, I like to say my ideas are for the taking. I'm just not responsible for what happens when you take them. Um, but yes, so I would say a shoggoth is very useful if you're interested in having someone else or something else have issues, shall we say.
Okay. So that's a nefarious use. I was thinking maybe there would be sort of like a positive use, like it could, wash
Well, I'm
out.
sure there's a well, you could think a positive use of a shoggoth. Well, yeah, there are positive uses, I guess. Um,
You don't seem very interested in them, though.
yeah, well, I guess it depends on your definition of positive.
Very good. All right. Why don't we leave it there? And Oliver, thank you so much for sharing your work with us tonight.
Sure.
And we'll have you back in a little bit to talk some more.
All right, we'll see you then.
All right. Thank you, Oliver. Our next reader is Tom Joyce. Tom writes a monthly feature called Nuts and Bolts for the Horror Writers Association's blog, featuring interviews about the craft and business of writing. In upcoming installments, author Casey Lansdale will discuss perspectives she's picked up as a singer-songwriter and actor, and share tips about storytelling, character creation, and self-marketing. And Joe Minhart, founder and CEO of Crystal Lake Entertainment, will provide practical advice for being horror authors. Look for Nuts and Bolts and lots of other good stuff for writers on the HWA's website, horror.org. If you have suggestions for interview subjects, Tom is interested in hearing from you, so please contact him at tomjhwa@gmail.com. Tom's short fiction has appeared in publications including Space and Time magazine and Needle, a magazine of noir. He is currently at work on a dark fantasy novel set in 1990s New Jersey, featuring historically accurate swordplay, fairy lore, medieval necromancy, and con artistry. You can find out more about Tom on Facebook, Tom Joyce Author, or Tom Guy with Stories. All right, let's welcome Tom Joyce.
Oh yeah, hey, how you doing? Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited about this because I really enjoy listening to Galactic Terrors every month. So this is very exciting. I don't really have anything of my own to promote aside from my monthly interview feature. Oh yeah. Oh, am I starting? Okay, yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, hey, how you doing? Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoy Galactic Terrors. I listen to it every month. I don't really have anything to promote aside from my monthly interview feature for the Horror Writers Association's blog at horror.org. So I thought I might do something a little bit different, if you don't mind. I thought I might tell you a story pertaining to my personal collection of haunted artifacts. And hey, Carol, would it be possible to remove that banner? If it's not, that's totally cool. Oh yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, I thought, but anyway, I thought I'd show you my personal collection of haunted artifacts. And don't worry, this won't take long because, my quote unquote collection is basically two objects. One is this deck of cards, which I guess technically is 52 objects. Unfortunately, they don't have any like cool, spooky sigils or anything. But okay, my other haunted artifact, prepare to be terrified. You got a heart condition, you might want to bail, just saying. Da-da-da! Da-da-da! Okay, you have heard of the Haunted Mansion, the Haunted Mirror. This is the world's only haunted ballpoint pen. It doesn't have a very auspicious origin story. I think my aunt got me this from like Borders Books back in the day. But it's kind of interesting because the pen and the cards are linked. I used to use this pen back in my newspaper reporting days. And the weird stuff with this pen started the night that I used it to take notes during an interview with the same gentleman who gave me this deck of cards as a souvenir. This is back in 1992. I was a cub reporter for a small newspaper in South Jersey. And my assignment this particular day was to cover a legal development in the case involving the 1979 shooting death of a local resident by the name of Nicola O'Connor, a.k.a. Slick Nick. He was an associate of a gentleman you may have heard of if you've ever heard the Bruce Springsteen song, Atlantic City. Well, they blew up the Chicken Man in Philly last night, and they blew up his house too. What I imagine are rather confusing lyrics if you're unaware of the fact that they refer to a real guy, Phil Testa, who was briefly head of the Philadelphia Mafia and whose nickname, the Chicken Man, came from the poultry businesses where he laundered his Cosa Nostra money until the nail bomb incident alluded to in the song. His associate Slick Nick O'Connor was an earner, not a made member, but he apparently decided he was well connected enough that he did not need to repay his gambling debts. And he left quite a few unpaid bills around until the night that he and 5 other gamblers with a similarly cavalier attitude toward debt repayment shot each other to death in a little South Jersey dive called the Huntley Bank Bar and Grill. This was during a backroom poker game run by a rather enigmatic figure who went by the name of Tommy the Rhymer. He's kind of a weirdo, Tommy the Rhymer. He claimed to be a Scottish laird, even though he sounded about as Scottish as I do. The really weird thing about this guy, he always talked in rhyme. Claimed he was under some kind of enchantment. General consensus was that the guy just really enjoyed the 60s, if you catch my drift. But, you know, I was a gutsy kid. Figured I had nothing to lose except possibly my kneecaps. Maybe I'd go around to the Huntley Bank Bar and Grill and see if Tommy the Rhymer would tell me the story, the real story of what happened the night of the massacre that killed Slick Nick O'Connor and 5 other men. To be perfectly honest, what he told me during that interview didn't make a hell of a lot of sense to me. But to the best of my recollection, the story that Tommy the Rhymer told me that night went something like this. Come join our circle. Have a drink. Enjoy a round on me. Share a tale. Just take in the camaraderie. You ask about the incident, the night that Slick Nick died. My story's public record. Hey, I have nothing to hide. But I'll recount it one more time to help you understand the odds-defying tragedy of Slick Nick's final hand. Saw fear that night in Slick Nick's eyes behind a haze of booze. His backers were some Philly boys who didn't like to lose. Still, Lady Luck eluded him as he lost every pot and prayed for intercession like the nuns in grade school taught. And now somehow he found his fate come down to one last deal. All around him, hungry sharks. Slick Nick, their bloodied meal. And so I dealt the final hands. Before each man they fell, like half a dozen tarot spreads, dark mysteries to tell. The players called, the players raised, the betting went around. Slick Nick knew he was finished. should good fortune let him down. And when the last of Slick Nick's chips resided in the pot, I scanned the table, told the gamblers, show me what you got. A bruiser wearing biker colors proudly on his back flipped his cards to show us all his hand, which held 3 jacks. Up next, a corporate CEO, much in the news of late, reclined back with a cocky smirk and showed his hand, a straight. After that, a mobster sneered and casually fanned his cards to show the table that a flush was in his hand. An ex-con who allegedly had taken several lives grinned broadly as he showed his cards, a full house, 3s and 5s. A cocaine kingpin who supplied the whole East Coast with lines surveyed the room, then showed his cards, revealing his 4 9s. All faces turned to Slick Nick. In the now pervading hush, Slick Nick gave us a smile back and showed his royal flush. Who was the first gambler to rise up from his seat, to shout that was no honest deal and call Slick Nick a cheat? Can't say who pulled the 38 or who the 44 or which one was the first to shoot or first to hit the floor. I guess it doesn't matter much. The end result's the same. 'Cause not a single player lived to say he'd won that game. Now, witnesses have testified that all I did was duck. Yet some hold me accountable for vagaries of luck. They whisper that a while back I fell in with a gal. Some call her Queen of Elfland, but I call her Femme Fatale. I spotted her on Huntley Bank and thought she looked real fine. I called her Queen of Heaven, and she said, spare me your lines. She fixed me with those feral eyes, and like a sap, I fell. She took me on a wild ride between heaven and hell. I kept my yap shut 7 years and learned some magic spells. Then came back to this mortal realm with services to sell. They say that if you cross me on my turf where games are played, then every hand's a losing hand and every card's the ace of spades. Drink up, my friends. Be mindful of the fair folk and the land. Be respectful of the old ways and be quick to lend a hand. Appreciate the miracles around you every day. May magic enter all your lives and help you on your way. Slan Java. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Wow. Okay, I just got to stick with that last line. May magic enter all your lives. That sounds to me like kind of be careful what you ask for, dude. So yeah. Oh my gosh, that was awesome. That was awesome.
Oh, thank you very much.
Definitely, cool. I had so much fun watching that. You know, it's like I love things where you don't know where it's going, but boy, that was pretty powerful.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, we have a question already from Teal James Glenn, who wants to know how does your liking of sleight of hand magic and horror intersect?
Oh, okay. Well, you know what I find very interesting about sleight of hand magic? There's actually a whole branch of neuroscience based on how we perceive sleight of hand magic. What it is it's based on gaps in our perception. I've read books about this. Like, what we think that we take in everything that we see, but our brain has a number of shortcuts, a number of hacks to help us function better. Sleight of hand magic kind of works in those gaps, and so does horror. Horror is all about the thing around the corner that you can't see yet. Horror is all about the sound that you're not quite sure you hear. It's all about like kind of that ambiguity, that uncertainty. I think that's what attracted me to both of them, that sense of mystery, you know?
So I think of, when you see those phrases where all the words are spelled wrong, but you still read it as if it all makes perfect sense. Your brain is filling in the gaps. So I think that's sort of what you're saying here. You know, there's something out there and your brain is supplying something for the horror, but what that is, that's intriguing. Cool. And he was also curious to know what are the influences for your magic work?
I've
or who?
Okay. I like the ones from like. Well, actually, you know what? One guy who's been an influence for me. I ended up interviewing him for Nuts and Bolts. Joel Hodgson, the creator of Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Ooh.
Yeah. He gave a very good interview for Nuts and Bolts where he talked about things like managing a team of creatives and stuff. But I also took like an online seminar with him where
cool.
he gave a demonstration of like magic instruction, and for him it's all about the entertainment. For him, it's not about like, nah, you don't know what I did. It's like, do the people enjoy the thing? You know what I mean? So I think that's the most important thing. And I think that's true.
Yeah.
Right?
That's really cool, because I don't like things that make you feel stupid because you couldn't figure it out. Why would you treat people like that and expect them to come back and see you again? Right.
Yeah, exactly. And, and like somebody comes up to, your table at a restaurant. Okay, now pick that card and that card. People kind of like let out an inner groan. So I'm kind of like,
there's something to that,
I mean, there are some excellent magicians out there. I am not one of them. I actually learned that just for this reading. So,
it went great. I was very impressed.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
That was really cool. Yeah. All I'm, me, I'm picturing I'm going to drop the cards before the thing starts, and then I'll just hang up and go away. Yeah. No, that was well done. Well, let's talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts thing too, because I think that's been really cool. You've been writing this column for a couple of years now for HWA on the horror.org site. And for those who are interested, if you just go there and in the search bar, you put in nuts and bolts, you get a whole list of all the things, many of the things that are up there. But you've had some great people. You've had Ellen Datlow, and you mentioned Joe Meinhardt, and then Joe Lansdale, Jennifer Brozak, J.G. Faraday, all sorts of cool people on this thing. So,
Jonathan Mayberry was kind enough to help me kind of really kick it off. It's been great because my take on it is I'm totally new to the horror scene, and I joined when I joined. I just wanted to learn more about it. So I'm sorry. Kathy was kind enough to accept a couple of my pieces for the HWA newsletter.
Yeah.
She's
great. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And Sumiko was kind enough to give me the opportunity to write my own interview feature. The whole concept of it is like me as a beginner. When I got involved in the horror scene, I could not believe how helpful people were, and like, you know, people who are like, oh my God, it's him, you know, and they're just kind of like, hey, what can I do for you? So I figure since people have been so willing to help me, the least I can do is kind of pay it forward. So that's what I'm doing with that. Like I said, I have an upcoming installment. It's really interesting because I like talking to people from different disciplines. Recently had an interview with J.H. Williams III, the Nebula-winning artist, comics artist, who, you know, kind of talked about it from an artist perspective. And this month it's Casey Lansdale, who, in addition to being an author, is also an actor and a singer-songwriter. So, you know, she talks about things like, from a short story writer's perspective, how do you bring in a coherent narrative in under 3 minutes? You know, how do you make a character come alive as an actor, and how does that carry over for writers? So, you know, we're looking forward to that.
Yeah. You know, I am just dying. You know, one of the questions people commonly ask authors is, do you listen to music while you're writing? Well, I love her music. I wonder what she listens to while she's writing, you know?
Yeah. I love me some traditional country. That's some great stuff.
Yeah. Her stuff is great. Yeah. That's terrific. Oh my goodness. So we do have another question as well, because James Ryan wanted to know, which paper did you write for and for how long? You said you were a journalist for a bit?
Yes. I wrote for a number of them. So yeah, you know, like most around South Jersey, like Gloucester County Times, Burlington County Times. Spent a lot of time at the York Daily Record, Central Pennsylvania. So
cool.
Yeah, not exactly a booming industry these days. So
well, you know, I still get newspapers because I think they're important. So yeah.
Oh, believe me, there's more of a need for it than ever. But
isn't that the truth? That's a whole nother. That's a whole nother subject.
A whole other thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, listen, this was so much fun. It's really cool to have you do something different on here. So I appreciate that very much. So what we'd like to do is have you hang out a little bit, and we'll have you come back on at the end, and we can talk about some other stuff you have coming up, if you don't mind.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much, Tom. Appreciate it. Cool. Well, it's time to introduce our third reader, Jennifer McMahon, who is the New York Times bestselling author of 12 novels, including Promise Not to Tell, The Winter People, and her latest, My Darling Girl. She lives in Florida with her partner, Drea. More about Jennifer at jennifer-mcmahon.com or on Instagram at Jennifer McMahon Writes. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hello, and thank you so much to Carol and Jim for inviting me. This is wonderful. I'm going to read a little bit from my latest novel, My Darling Girl. It is about Allison, who is a successful children's book author whose life is thrown upside down when she learns her estranged, abusive mother has just been diagnosed with terminal cancer, and it is her mother's dying wish to come and be with Allison and seek her forgiveness and seek peace before she goes. Allison reluctantly agrees, and as she invites her mother into her home and starts spending time with her mother, begins to wonder if this woman is really her mother at all, or if it's possible that she might be possessed by an ancient dark entity who now has its sights set on Allison and her family. So I'm going to read a little bit from a little ways into the book. This is chapter 10. This is the first night that Allison's mother, Mavis, spends in Allison's home. And the only thing we really need to know is that we mentioned Bobby, who is Allison's mother's best friend from childhood. Moxie was growling. I opened my eyes. She was at the foot of our bed, hackles raised. I'd been dreaming about our old house in Woodstock, my mother's house. I was a child again, walking through the dim rooms like a ghost. Nothing was where I remembered. There were doors where there shouldn't be, and I couldn't find my bedroom. I was looking for a place to hide, a good place where she wouldn't find me. Who do you think you are? She was saying as she hunted me from room to room. Only it wasn't my mother, not really. She floated rather than walked, and her voice, it was like the sizzle of sparklers on the 4th of July. the buzzing of insects. She was wearing a horrible pink dress trimmed with gold, the same dress worn by the new glass angel hanging in our living room. But she was no angel. The dress had turned to a shiny, hardened carapace. Her abdomen was stretched out, bulbous, and she had 6 legs that skittered along the floor and wall as she moved toward me. She was speaking to me, but I couldn't understand her words anymore. They came out in a low, droning buzz. I opened my eyes and looked at the clock. 3:03. I sat up and gulped in a breath of air, told myself I was safe. I was an adult, safe in my bedroom with my husband snoring softly beside me. Moxie was still on alert at the foot of our bed, growling deep and low, her hackles raised as if to say, "You really thought you could be safe." I shook Mark awake. "Moxie hears something." "Must be a deer outside," Mark said, rolling over. "Shh, Moxie, good girl." He sat up, reached down and gave her a reassuring pat, then lay back down and plopped a pillow over his head. Moxie sprang off the bed and started out the bedroom door, still growling. She stepped tentatively, as if she was very much afraid of whatever was out there. The giant insect woman angel thing in the pink dress. Did I hear a buzzing downstairs? Or was that just Moxie's growl? The floor, the whole house seemed to vibrate with the droning buzz. "Mark," I said, shaking him again. "Just a deer," he mumbled. "You know that dog and deer." But when there was a deer in the yard, Moxie would bark and jump at the window. This was different. There was something in the house. I loved my husband, but he was useless in the middle of the night. Even when the girls were babies, it was me who always woke when they cried, me who did middle of the night changings and feedings. It was me who got up to soothe the bad dreams, to take temperatures, to search for the monsters under the bed. I got up now and followed Moxie into the hall. She crept along the carpeted corridor slowly, cautiously, very un-Moxie-like behavior. She was one of the most chill dogs I'd ever known, not reactive or territorial in the slightest, and I'd never known her to be afraid of anything. I followed, pausing to open Olivia's bedroom door. It stuck, as did most of the old doors in our house, and let out a little creak as I pushed it open. Olivia was there, sound asleep, surrounded by the piles of stuffed animals that she insisted we tuck her in with each night, her ladybug nightlight glowing softly. I pulled the door closed gently, then opened the next door on the right, looked in to see Izzy asleep on her bed, with her headphones on. She looked so young, asleep in Mark's oversized UVM t-shirt, face bare of makeup, relaxed, vulnerable. Her room was a mess, clothes and books strewn everywhere, brightly colored energy drink cans on every surface. 4 feet in front of me, the dog stood at the top of the stairs, growling so low and deep that the walls seemed to reverberate. "Shh, Moxie, it's okay," I told her unconvincingly. She started down the stairs, ridge-backed, head down, teeth bared. I don't think I'd ever seen my goofy, lovable lab quite this ferocious. There was a definite hiss from downstairs and flickering lights. I froze, holding tight to the banister, not wanting to follow her, not wanting to see whatever was down there, waiting for me. I swallowed hard, forced my feet to move forward as I trailed Moxie down the stairs into the living room. The television was on, the screen showing only static, the whole room flickering from its white, buzzing fire. My mother was sitting on the couch, staring at the static on the TV, entranced, the remote in her hand. "Mother?" I said, "What are you doing?" She was in her white nightgown. Her feet were bare, pale, looking like alabaster against the hardwood floor. She looked at me in surprise. "Allison?" "Yes." "What on earth are you doing here?" I looked around the room, saw the unlit tree looming in the corner, the new angel swaying slightly, watching us with cold curiosity. Outside, the moonlight illuminated freshly fallen snow. Moxie's demeanor changed completely. She yawned nervously and made her way to her bed in the corner, where she curled into a tight ball, eyes on us. It's my house. I swallowed, took a step toward my mother. Is it really you? She asked. Was this the effect of her medication, or was it the illness itself, the stress and exhaustion of the day? I made a mental note to talk to the nurse about it in the morning. If this nighttime wandering and confusion was going to be a regular thing, we needed to be ready. My mother smiled at me. I'm glad it's you, Allie Alligator. Sometimes they're not who they say they are. Sometimes they put on different faces. My mouth went dry, my heart jackhammering into my chest. Who does, Mother? Don't you remember? She asked. I shook my head. My mother looked down at the remote in her hand. I've been trying to make a call, she said, pushing buttons, but I can't get through. She looked so small, so lost and pitiful. My heart ached a little to see her like this. That's the television remote, Mother, I explained, my voice low and soothing. She put it to her ear like a phone. I can't get through. She sounded frantic as she waved the remote around, stabbing at the buttons with her pointer finger. Who are you trying to call? Bobby, my mother said. I need to talk to Bobby. Great. A telephone call to the dead. Just what we needed to be dealing with at 3 a.m. I need to ask her what to do, if there's a way to stop it. Stop what, Mother? She clung tightly to the remote, kept pushing the buttons. Don't pretend you don't know, Allie. That's not going to do either one of us any good. I walked over, gently took the TV remote from my mother's hands, pressed the power button. The screen went from crackling static to black, and the room dimmed. Let's get you back to bed, okay? I took her gently by the arm, helped her to her feet. She was so light, hardly there, a whisper of a woman. Where are we? She asked, looking around, panic rising. My house, I said again, leading her across the living room, into the dining room, toward the guest room, which was on the other side of the kitchen. We shouldn't be here, my mother said. She whipped her head around, searching the shadows. Of course we should. This is where I live, me and Mark and the girls, and you're staying with us. Don't you remember? Paul brought you this afternoon. It isn't safe, she said, eyes frantic. I thought of the med list Paul had left me, the instructions to give her an Ativan if she seemed agitated. This definitely qualified, one Ativan coming right up. We got to the guest room door and I guided her through. I helped my mother back into bed, tucked her in the way I'd tucked Olivia in only hours ago. Of course it's safe. You're safe here. We're going to take good care of you. I spoke as soothingly as I could. It was my mommy voice, the one I used to chase away bad dreams and fevers. She laughed. It was a crackling, dry leaves brushing together sort of laugh. You're the one who isn't safe, Allison. You're the one in danger. My heart went cold and still inside the cage of my chest. She looked at me, grasped my hand with her own, which was bony, claw-like. It's always been you. Now I will end there.
Ooh. Okay. I just have to tell you, I am in the middle of reading this book, and I am in chapter 10, and I stopped about like 3 pages from where you just started reading. How did you know that? Oh my gosh.
I must have psychically picked up on that.
I think so. And I just have to say, this entire book is fabulous. I love your work, but this one, there's been something coming, and I just have been waiting for the other shoe to fall. So yes.
No, I had a lot of fun sort of building that sense of dread and like, what's going on? Is Allison losing it? Is there something really happening with her mother? Is it just the stress of, the trauma of what Allison went through as a child? Is she making excuses? And
was her brother right, or is she right?
Was her mother right? Is she right? Is she just kind of having some sort of breakdown because this is super stressful, and it's also Christmas time, and she doesn't deal so well with Christmas. She's, it's a high stress thing.
Yeah, well, that's the thing I was saying when when we put together some of our notes on this thing, tune in for a different kind of suspense, because this is just a long buildup. It's really very exciting. So sorry, Jim. I just had to jump on there.
No, please go ahead. Yeah, I that's such a cool coincidence that Jennifer picked up where you left off reading the book. It's like having your own custom audio book direct to the author or something. But
right. Well, wait till I call tomorrow for chapter 12. You know.
Yeah, I'll read it. Just keep calling.
But no, I mean, it's an interesting observation that you made, Carol. And one of the things I was wondering about, Jennifer, and I have not read all of your books, although I'm working on it. But I've noticed in the ones I've read that you tend to go into that sort of gray area of horror where maybe there's something supernatural, maybe there isn't, and usually lean back towards the natural. And I'm wondering, what is it about that kind of story or that atmosphere that appeals to you?
I love playing with that balance. I love putting someone, an ordinary person in an extraordinary circumstance and have them make all sorts of excuses like, well, it can't really be anything. It's gotta be, my mother can't really be possessed by a demon. It's gotta be something else. It appeals to me. I think going back, I think it's just something deeply rooted in me. I was raised by my psychiatrist grandmother and my mentally ill mother. And so I think I have both those voices on each one, a voice whispering in each ear. And I think it's why I am the way I am. And that's why I write the sort of things I write and do the back and forth. Is it real? Is it not real? Is there a scientific explanation? Oh no, it's definitely a ghost or it's definitely a demon. And there's something really creepy happening here. And I just have fun playing with that.
That's great.
Well, I'm just going to say you clearly just answered Jonathan Lee's question of how are you so awesome. So that's how, yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. No, I've enjoyed your other books quite a lot. And I am thrilled that they're not, horror is more than just slasher and chainsaws and guts and things like that, so I am very intrigued with the way that you make something crawl up the back of the reader's neck when they, they're just, reading the book, it's very good.
Well, I creep myself out when I'm writing for sure.
Do you?
Yeah. When I'm writing a scene and I start to get that back of the neck feeling, I'm like, this is what I'm onto something good here. I need to follow this wherever it goes. And I'm not a plotter or planner or outliner, so I never really know where a story is going to go or what's going to happen. Each day I write it down, which makes it extra exciting.
Well, how do you do that with your publisher and your agent? Then you say, yes, I'm going to write something cool. And they say, go ahead, right?
Pretty much at this point. Yeah, they kind of trust me to do my own thing. And I mean, because I write such messy, crazy first drafts, I'd spend a lot of time editing and then they help me shape it into the thing that it becomes. But yeah, each book is a journey for me and I never quite know where I'm going to end up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that keeps it exciting too and keeps you engaged, I would imagine.
Oh, it does, definitely. I think it was my third novel. My editor actually asked for an outline, and I spent so much time on that one. I wrote this 13-page outline, and I kept turning it in, and she would give me feedback, and I'd tweak it, and I'd turn it in, and then I'd tweak it some more, and we'd go round and round. And by the time I sat down to actually write the book with this outline, I felt so boxed in and bored and unhappy that I just threw it on the floor. I was like, nope, I'm done with this. And I just kind of did my own thing. And I turned in the book and she said, well, this wasn't in the outline and this wasn't in the outline and this wasn't in the outline. I said, I know. And isn't it a better book? And I wasn't asked to do an outline again.
Well, that's nice to say.
One of the things I've noticed when I write an outline is that when I go to write the story, I feel like I've already told the story.
Mm-hmm.
By writing an outline. Is that what you find?
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason that I sit down at the desk in front of the computer every day is because I want to know what happens next. And if I already know, then it's not fun for me. And if it's not fun, why do it? That's how I look at it. But I mean, everyone does things differently and everyone has to find their own process. And I talk to people who outline and love it. And they say that's where that's what they put their creativity into that. And that's where they get that whole, like, what's going to happen next? They get all that when they're doing the outline. So, what works for me doesn't work for everyone. And what works for other people doesn't work for me. And we all have to find our own process, man.
Teal James Glenn says, yeah, Pantsers.
Yeah,
well, and we have an interesting comment from Rebecca Cuthbert, which is that you're so good at depicting complex family relationships, always with empathy. And that is, I think that strikes on something that's essential to good suspense and good horror is characters that feel real so that their reactions really resonate with the reader. What are your thoughts on that aspect of suspense and horror?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I always start with character. I start with a character before anything else. And because if we're going to go on this crazy journey with someone and it's going to go to really unlikely, weird places, it needs to be with a character that people feel like they can relate to and care about. And if I don't relate to her and care about her, then the reader sure isn't. So I try to spend a lot of time getting to know my characters and kind of trying to get inside their head and living with them and getting to know them and getting them to tell me their secrets and getting them to tell me the things they don't want to tell other people. Yeah. And I hope that all comes through on the page.
Yeah. Well, you raise an interesting point, when you're talking about her as the character, because I have really also appreciated that you have very strong and interesting women in your books. And if I could just put up one picture here, this is from a bunch of your different covers and your books. And there's fascinating women and young women in all of these. And I think that's cool. Now, is that just, the type of person that you speak to? Is that the kind of character you like visiting? How's your focus come about there?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's the kind of character I like visiting and the kind of character whose voice just comes to me. I really suck at writing men, particularly straight white men. I'm terrible at it. My editor, every time I try to do a point of view from a man, she's like, "Oh, you and men." I struggle and I work really hard at it, but it's not my thing. I was actually going to do in this book some points of view from the husband Mark's point of view, but it was a mess. I couldn't do it. So, and it was Allison's story in the end, and we didn't really need to hear from Mark.
No,
it was Allison's story all the way. But yeah, for whatever reason, that's what I'm drawn to writing. And I love writing particularly young. And this book doesn't have a young female or a girl character, but a lot of my books do have like a quirky girl or quirky adolescent kind of misfit, kind of imaginative, wild girl. And you never quite know what she's up to. I almost put that in here. I almost did another point of view from one of the daughters, but again, I was like, no, I think this might be the first book that I've ever written that's really just one narrator throughout the whole thing. There's a little bit of journal stuff, there's a little bit of that, but overall it's just one storyline. And it's the least complicated book I've ever written, because usually I've got more than one storyline going on and sometimes different time periods, and it's a lot to keep track of for my mind.
Yeah. Well, I guess I have one last question for you. This story takes place in Vermont, this book that you were reading from. And I know you used to be in Vermont and you were somewhere very different from Vermont now. So how does that fit in with what you're writing? Were you still there while you were writing this, or were you, in Vermont?
Yes, I was in Vermont. Yeah. I moved to Florida about a year and a half ago. And all of my books so far have been set in Vermont. And the book that is with my editors now, my next book that will be out, is also set in Vermont. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. We'll see. I might mix things up a little.
Might get some hot weather spookiness. Yeah.
We might get some hot weather spookiness. We'll see.
Cool. Now, the new book, this is My Darling Girl. This just came out.
Yes, it came out. When did it come out? I'm looking October 3rd, 23.
Okay, so it's been out for a little while.
It's been out in the fall. So there will be a paperback out in the fall, and then sometime next year the new book will appear. And I don't really have much to share, but we'll say a little more later on.
That's okay. You can refer to your outline and get back to us.
Absolutely.
Right.
That's cool.
So we have one last question that just came in from the audience. This is from Teal James Glenn. It's an interesting question. As a pantser, how do you make sure your books land at the right length?
Oh, the right length. Gosh. I spend a lot of time revising, and in revision, I end up cutting and then putting in more. And I think that all comes together during the revision process. And that's when I that's when I actually do an outline when I'm revising, and I'll do my outline, and I use index cards. I do an index card outline. I'm a big index card person. So in revision, I tweak everything and get it to be the right length and make sure everything makes sense in some way.
Terrific. All right. So shall we have Tom and Oliver join us again, and we'll talk a little bit about what everyone has coming up next?
Yeah, come on in, guys. Yeah. So this was such a fun evening because we had such interesting variety of stuff that we were talking about. So thank you all for joining us. So that was fun.
Yeah, that was really terrific. Thank you for sharing your words with us, as Carol likes to say sometimes. And Tom, your card shuffling skills were impressive. I think you're the first card shuffling card deck using author we've had on Galactic Terrors. You said a first.
Mhm. Woohoo. Cool.
Yeah, I'm a little jealous, Tom. I feel like I should have put together a show.
Ah,
You
cool.
did. You did.
Yeah.
Show of literary
Yeah.
prowess, man.
There was not enough. Should have brought
I
in the
just
tentacles
pictured Tom and Oliver on the road. You know, that's a
or the
new
rats.
thing. Yeah.
That could be fun. That could.
Yeah.
I could
There's
see
a
that
reality show.
getting into trouble quite quickly.
Oh, hell yeah. Let's make it happen, Oliver.
Okay. Yeah.
So let's hear what can we look forward to from you in the months to come. Oliver, have you got anything on the horizon?
Well, I've got stuff, but I haven't really sent it to anybody. I just wrote, actually today, a flash fiction piece with weird deformed fish people and bugs
Ooh.
that are
As one
bugs,
does. Yes.
bugs with leather wings and something that happens to some guy. So I'm calling it Property of Bugs.
Oh, I like the title. Yeah. Well, I'm in.
I'm
Certainly
already getting the creepies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
And then I have that story the full story of a familiar session that has to go to somebody. And I wrote 2 poems last month, which were one a haiku, and the other one a longer poem, which actually both kind of relates to the familiar session in a weird way. I didn't write it to be that, but it turns out after I finished the poem, it actually fits with a familiar session, and also actually fits with an earlier poem of mine that was sort of based on the Pied Piper.
Cool.
So apparently there's a rat theme going in my head.
Well, you do live in New York City. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say that?
Right. No, that's fine. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that New York City rats are evolved from shoggoths. So
right. Or perhaps it's the rats on the walls.
Yes.
there you go.
Yes. You've inherited the mansion. Excellent.
Yes. And then the other thing is I've been editing game manuals, so that's been fun. And I have a big project in that realm coming up, but I can't talk about that.
Okay.
All right.
Mum's the word.
We'll have you back in the future to tell us when you can talk about it.
Tell us when
Right.
you can. Yeah.
Probably at the end of the year or next year or something like that.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. So, Tom, what about you? Do you have some stuff coming up?
I haven't actually sent him the questions yet, but I've been in contact with Joe Meinhardt, the founder and CEO of Crystal Lake Entertainment. What inspired that was that Crystal Lake had just put out a couple of comprehensive guides for, it appeared to be geared specifically toward beginning horror authors such as myself. And he was kind enough to give me like kind of the first copy to review in advance for the interview, and it was very useful. So I'm planning to send him a list of questions where I'm just going to ask him some, information that might be of use to beginning authors. And that's really kind of the demographic that I see Nuts and Bolts as being geared particularly toward, is people who are kind of just getting into this and want to know things about the craft and the business of writing. And as I said, people have been very helpful. So, my email address is tomjhwa@gmail.com. So if you have any suggestions for Nuts and Bolts, it's essentially a how-to feature, you know. So I'm not really, you know, like I'm not doing like things such as like profiles or like experiences that may have shaped you as an author. I mean, interesting as that is, it's inherently subjective. But if you have like if you're an expert in a subject matter that might be useful to an author, or if you have some tips you can share on self-marketing or on, you know, constructing a novel or a short story or anything, please, I'd love to hear from you. So thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
Cool.
Great. And Jennifer, you already gave us a hint about what's coming up next.
Yeah, I'm not outlining. I'm I'm revising the next novel that will be out sometime next year, and it is we'll call it historical horror, and I'm very excited. This is my first queer protagonist, so I'm very excited about this. Yes.
And it's a historical one. That's interesting.
Yes,
You're mixing all sorts. You're crossing the
all kinds
stories.
of things. Yes.
So
So I've got
no connections to the
19 storyline and a present-ish day storyline. And
Oh,
in
cool.
1919, the protagonist is a queer woman. So it's going to be it's been a lot of fun doing the research and doing the writing.
Excellent.
Right.
Well, you know, I can't wait.
There's no connection between the forthcoming book and the one that's out now.
No, there is not. No, I can't. I don't have the attention span to do series or you know. Yeah, I do standalones only. I've tortured my people enough after a novel. I have to leave them alone and go torture someone else for a little while.
Oh, well, that's fair. Yeah.
They've earned a reprieve.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and Jennifer, will you be at StokerCon?
I will. I am super excited. Yay.
Okay. And Tom and Oliver had told us earlier that you're aiming for maybe next year for Stoker. So that'll be cool. Yeah.
Great.
Great.
All right.
Excellent. Jim, how about you? What do you have coming up?
What do I have coming up? I have a new anthology coming out from Hippocampus Press, probably within the next few months, called Where the Silent Ones Watch. And it's stories and poems inspired by or set in the worlds of William Hope Hodgson's fiction, The House on the Borderlands, The Nightland, and stories like novels and stories like that. And I'm in the process of announcing the contributors, which I've fallen behind on, and we'll be catching up on soon. But I'm very excited about that. It's kind of a follow-up to Under Twin Suns, which was an anthology of stories inspired by the King in Yellow and the Yellow Sign mythos of Robert W. Chambers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and Carol, I know you have your new anthology in the works, but I think you have something else coming up later this year too.
I do. I have something exciting to share, and I'll just tell the story to get there. There's an anthology coming out in September from Flame Tree Publishing, and this is the 5 people who were nominees with me for Stoker Award a few years ago, and it was the first time that all of the nominees were women. So it was Lee Murray who won the award, and we were so thrilled and excited for her. Cindy O'Quinn, Kyla Lee Ward, and Anna Taborska in UK, and myself were all nominated. And so I am one of those chatty people. You might have noticed this. And we all sort of started talking together and discovered that we had a very similar kind of feminist bent to some of the things that we were writing, and especially some of the horror. And so we started banding about, and we developed an idea for this anthology. Basically, if you think about the amount of abuse that the planet has endured and the degradation of women for hundreds or thousands of years, we've reached a tipping point. And things are changing. Women are changing and having a little power of their own, and they will hear us coming. So this is called Discontinue If Death Ensues, which is from a wonderful poem by Marge Piercy, was the title of her poem. And I'm very excited. Some of the stories interrelate, but we have 5 authors from all around the world. And I was able to co-edit it with Anna Taborska. So the 2 of us worked really hard, and our friends on the group worked really well. And I'm very excited to see it come out very soon. So thanks for asking.
That's awesome.
So
All right.
heaven forbid I should just say 3 words about it, you know.
I know. You always make me feel bad. I'm like, yeah, I should have said more about my upcoming project.
Well, you've gotten good at it. That's the answer, Jim.
That's it. I've learned to boil things down. It's my defense mechanism for when I'm asked to write a synopsis.
Ooh, that is harder than writing a book. I've just discovered this. Yeah.
No, Jennifer, do you get off the hook on synopsis writing too because you don't outline, or?
I still do a synopsis, but it's pretty vague, Jim. Since I don't really know what's happening.
Okay.
It's pretty vague synopsis, but yeah, I do a synopsis.
I was going to say, if you figured out how to get out of that one, you're the envy of every other writer. I think nobody likes writing synopses.
No, I don't think so.
All right. Well, thank you again for joining us. Anyone have any last comments or thoughts before we wrap up for the evening?
Yes. Oh, positive things for Shoggoths. They're good at helping you find things.
Okay.
Okay. Because they come out from those creepy spots where the things might have been
Exactly.
lurking.
Right.
Okay.
When you
All right.
they go to the places where those socks that get lost in the dryer and you don't know where they are. They go to those places.
I was
So-
thinking sort of search and rescue at disaster sites, but lost socks is just as
Yeah.
valid.
Search and rescue works, but you can't guarantee that what they're rescuing
Is worth
comes
saving.
back the same way.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it's better not to send them for search and rescue.
Okay, that's fair.
Got it.
Excellent. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for sharing your time and your talent and your treasures. This has been a lovely evening. So
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
For our audience, thank you. And
Ooh.
join us back here on, what is our next date? June 13th,
yes.
when we will have Kirsten Petrus, Amy Greck, and Taylor Grant reading with us. That should be a pretty exciting episode. So we hope to see you then. Like and subscribe or join the newsletter. And I think I promised to put that link in the chat and then didn't, unless you beat me to it, Carol.
We may have, but I think I happen to have it. Here it is. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
The ultimate copy and paste, right?
That's it. And keep in touch, and we hope to see you all next month and months afterwards. So thank you all and have a great evening.
Excellent. And guests, hang on for a second when we're all done here. We'll love to chat. Yeah.